Hello, Hockey World. It's Monday, July 19th, 2021.
I'm Michael Agello, and I wonder what the hell we're going to talk about today.
I'm Carrie Nice, and I know what we're going to talk about today.
Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
Kevin Allen, HockeyBuzz.
And I am Eklund, and you're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that loves weeks like this. This is a heck of a lot going on. We're going to start off with it. We have a team that doesn't have any players right now. We're going to end up with teams making trades at the draft. Things are just insane. So here we are. And we are going to start off today. We have Karine for the first 15 minutes with the obvious big news right now, which is the fact that the Montreal Canadiens have decided to not protect Carey Price, their legendary franchise goalie. There's so much I know we all want to say, but I want to hear Karen's opinion because this is right up your alley. I know you sent me an interesting text today, that the last text you just sent me, which I would like to read out loud if that's okay.
Yeah, go for it.
Because if you don't mind me reading it, it was very interesting. Kind of careful what you wish for scenario there. People wanted this to happen during the season when it wasn't going well. So let's start there, Corinne. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, my thoughts are when the Canadiens were struggling this season, I mean, the fans and the media were saying Price, Weber, too old, they can't do it anymore, you can't win with a team built around them. And, people were actually talking about the fact that the expansion draft might be an out for them, a way to get rid of those big cap hits. But now, obviously, after the unexpected Stanley Cup playoffs run, people are like, well, no, we never said that. We're fine, everyone's fine.
Yeah.
And so, obviously, it's been a bit of a mad 48 hours in Montreal. I mean, first, we heard about Weber, but then, they tempered that with saying he's not going to play next season anyway because of multiple operations. So people are like, oh, okay, fine, we're fine then. And then just as they started tweeting again, schlock, Price is not protected. And you're just like, say what now? So yeah, it's been interesting, but I think what's even more interesting here is, according to what's been reported, that wasn't even Marc Bergevin asking Price, do you want to waive your no movement clause? It was Price saying, excuse me, I can waive my clause if you want to protect Allen. Apparently, Price thought that since he may have an operation, if Allen got taken in the expansion draft, Montreal would be without either goalies, and that wouldn't be good. So that's one way to approach it. But
that's one spin on this thing. I mean,
but actually, that's a real spin, because if you remember, for months I had a source that said if Allen is out there, Seattle will take him.
Well,
Montreal knew that.
Yeah, they did know that.
And the thing is also that makes me think it's true. It's because it's been reported that Bergevin was trying to, make a trade for Allen, not to lose him for nothing.
Yes.
And he just couldn't do it. And it's just really last minute that he went for the nuclear option that Price had given him. So I think that's the real take, that Price actually said, yeah, I can waive it. And Bergevin didn't want to use that card unless he really had to. But I'm pretty sure right now, if Seattle calls and says, so, what would you give us not to touch Carey Price? I'm pretty sure that Bergevin is going to be listening. Because
if that happens, then there's been never a worse mismanaged thing in the history of hockey. Because the reality is I know, for talking to sources today, that there were discussions between Bergevin and Francis about that in the Allen instance. Like, what do we need to not take Allen?
Yeah.
That has to be less than what do we need to not take Price.
Yes, but if you think about it, people are going to be much more tolerant to the fact that you're giving up assets to keep Carey Price than Jake Allen.
No, and Allen's going to start the season. Carey Price is most likely getting the hip surgery. So then
I think it's me.
His wife just posted something. It'll all make sense in a couple of days. And I don't think she means the expansion draft. I think she means surgery.
Yeah, let's get the seasoned and well thought out opinion of Kevin Allen before the psychotic rantings of Mike Agello. Go ahead.
Well, I first of all, I don't think Seattle's made up its mind what it wants to do. I mean, I've talked to people around the league, and it's kind of a split hung jury. first general manager I talked to said, well, if I was Francis, I'd take him. The next two I talked to said there's no way they're going to take him. They've got a plan in place. He said, I had talked to Ron before, and he had talked to a plan about, making sure he was set up for the future. And he goes, taking Carey Price will not help that plan. It helps him in the now, but not to prepare him because of that big cap hit. And he said, it's going to be hard to move that cap hit, even if Carey Price was willing to move. And he said, because nobody can take it, and taking half of it, then you're stuck with $5 million. So I would say the majority of people I've talked to, not just general managers, think that France is not going to do it. But there are people out there that just agree that with what Eklund said, that, the aura that Carey Price brings to the team, regardless of the fact that they're completely sold out and probably will be sold out for years, would be hard to deny, hard to turn down. That, it just gives the team instant credibility in terms of, selling the team. Like, imagine how many Carey Price jerseys there would be in the city. I'll bet there, it's a nice problem to have, but I bet it's agonizing for Seattle. And I believe that this is a ownership decision.
Totally.
Like Ron Francis will offer his opinion, but this is going to change if they take him what they were planning to do. And, for that reason, they've got to decide. They had this well thought out plan, and now the availability of this goalie changes that.
It's funny because usually revisionist history occurs years after a particular event, not 2 weeks. And this is the thing. Okay, I have all the respect in the world for Carey Price, but the Carey Price of 2021 is not the Carey Price of 2014 when he almost single-handedly got them to the finals before Chris Kreider double skated him in the knee. Okay, he's a good goalie. He's a top 10 goalie. He is not the best goalie in the league. He is not a $10.5 million goaltender, which is the highest salary. Bobrovsky is second. Vasilevsky's third. Those have to be factors into what Ron Francis and the ownership of the Kraken decide to do. And I'll tell you right now, if I'm Ron Francis or if I'm the Seattle Kraken and Ron Francis is advocating them taking Carey Price, then I would advocate him seeking some psychological testing, because honestly, I'm sorry, you're like everything that you've said over the weekend. You're looking at Carey Price like he's the 25-year-old.
No, I'm looking at the whole picture of Carey Price. But
let me just finish.
Go ahead, I'm not good.
Because he's what, 32 years old, Corinne? 32.
He's going to be 34 in August. 34.
Okay, he's 33 going on 34. Yep. He is breaking down. He's got hip problems. He had a concussion. He was on the IR twice this year. He's going to have a knee surgery. He's got 5 years left at $10.5 million. And good luck if he starts breaking down even more than that for Seattle, if they take him to ship him someplace else. So no way in hell if I'm the Seattle Kraken, do I take him? No way in hell.
Just to your point, Mike, I think you're talking like a Leafs fan, as in you don't want the player who's going to make you win in the playoffs. Regular season price is not what it used to be. Playoffs price is something else quite entirely. And that's the reason why I'm a bit worried about Benjamin's gamble there. Well, if I'm Seattle, I'm thinking, that goalie could help me if I make the playoffs. So that's interesting.
Well, based on my prediction that the Habs will finish in sixth place in the Atlantic next year, then that would be a reason to trade him, because you're not.
I'll tell you, the only other thing that comes to my neck is Montreal has 11 picks. If Francis wants, he can get a couple picks out of them, and that's probably what he'll do.
If that happens, like I said, then Bergevin should be fired, because honestly, he
could
still
have 9 picks in the draft.
You could have gotten. There's no way you're going to tell me that it would have cost you less to keep it.
Allen. Oh yeah, it would cost you less.
There's just no way, because I mean there's a whole. All right.
Seattle's going to want Jake Allen at $2.8 million. If they decide we don't want Price, then the price to not take Carey Price probably is less, because it's a 1 and a 3 that they wanted for Jake Allen. There's been a number of reports that was the amount that they wanted, a first and a third not to take Jake Allen.
And they're asking price for every player.
I heard it was a first and a prospect not to take Allen. But you give that to
Well-
keep Allen, and people won't be happy. You give something even more than that to keep Price, people are going to be fine with it. It's just
That's
it's
an
just how
interesting
it is
take.
in
That's an interesting
Montreal.
take on it, Karen. That's
It's
interesting.
how it
but-
is in Montreal. And if he could have made a deal to protect Allen instead of protecting Price, that's what he would have done. But the deal was just not there to be made. I think, it's really the last resort. I'm going to expose Price, and it's a big gamble. But if he pulls it off, it's heck of a good gamble,
Kevin, you're going to say?
Well, I'm just going to say I think the price now will be Jake Allen, a first and a third.
Yeah.
That's what I think it will be. I mean, that's what I would do.
That's what I would do. I agree 100%.
Then I would say take them.
You
There
take
is-
what the original price was.
All right, I'm going. I've been quiet. I'm trying really hard to not let everybody talk. Go ahead, Mike. Continue.
I was going to say, for what Kevin said, if it's Ron Francis, you say, I dare you, or Mark Bergeron, I dare you to take him. And Ron will say, I don't want him. I don't want him. I don't want I don't want the boat anchor of 10.5 times 5 years. No way.
Okay, it's not a boat anchor. First off, we're not talking about Jeff Skinner here. We're talking about it's like this is a very different. This is let's
Carey Price is in 3 years. Zach, honestly,
maybe nowhere, but you know what? 3 years with Carey Price is a hell of a good start for the Seattle Kraken. A hell of a good start. Like that.
Yeah, but cleaning up the financial mess will be.
But
getting in their way of getting better.
That ownership, they're not going to be they've already they said they're going to be a cap team. They're going to spend the cap, but they're not going to be a cap team for a while. There's no reason to be. Just in the same way Vegas was not a cap team for a while. What what they're going to do is they're going to clearly put together a team, give themselves flexibility, try to use use the power they can to put other teams through the ringer a little bit right here. And at the end of the day, if you know that the bottom line is, I know players who signed in Montreal, even when Carey Price wasn't at his best, who said that it's a lot easier to sign knowing Carey Price is there. People want to go. Having a goalie like Carey Price behind you is an enormous thing for a team. It's just like the same thing Marc-Andre Fleury was for Vegas. None of this Vegas stuff happens without Marc-Andre Fleury. I'm 100%.
Yeah, but Fleury's better at this point in his career, even at the Vegas point. Than
he was
Price
the same
is
age,
now.
first of all, right? He was the same age, but at that point in his career.
I don't know. I don't know if this is going to be much of a factor, but the price cap hit 10.5 million times 5 years is 52.5 million for the next 5 years, and the real money is 44 million. So it's around 8.5 million less.
There's one thing this ownership group does not worry about, and that is money. Okay,
They'll worry about it when they're at the cap, like everybody else.
This is a group that
I don't think that's true.
Yeah.
Well, no, I can
Not
tell
at
you.
all.
I mean, from talking to people who, I've talked to two different people who interviewed for GM jobs with this team. This team, like they took them on their private yachts. They talked about how they're going to spend, how they've made it in their startups. How they've done this. This is a group. This is a group that knows what it means. They know what publicity is all about.
Yeah, but
They know what PR is all about.
that's the wooing process. I mean, when it gets down to you're talking about Jerry Bruckheimer being part of this group. Look at some of the movies he's made and tell me they didn't cut costs.
It's a little different with a hockey team than making a movie.
I'm just saying, they're not going to go out and spend like drunken sailors. I don't think so.
No, these guys don't. They're in this for the long term. They're in this because they love it. They're in this because they want to win. This is a dream team NHL ownership group. I've been told, flat out by the NHL and everybody else. They're going to look at this. They're going to pressure Francis to take him. I'm almost 100% sure of that. Now, I also think that they will give Francis the end say. I don't think they'll say, you have to take him.
That's what's been reported actually by LeBron. I think this morning he said that the ownership had told Francis, "You do what you want. We're fine with the money. We're fine with the injury histories."
And they'll say that.
Your call.
You can do either way. The bottom line here is that having a player of that solid behind you, behind your team is just enormous. And the fact of the matter is, yes, you can trade him in a couple years and keep half of his salary. And maybe because what Price has shown is that he is not the greatest goalie when your team is not playing that great. But when your team is playing well in front of him, when your team has any bit of hope that he played behind some teams in Montreal the past couple of years that had very little.
Yeah,
but when his team showed any kind of signs of pressure, when his team got better in the bubble in the playoffs, he got better. When his team got better, this year in the playoffs, he got better.
Yeah, but you're talking about a team that's, unless it's another Vegas, is not going to play in a playoff scenario. So the playoff carry price, as Corinne called it, is inconsequential.
But also the pressure of not being in Montreal anymore with Carey Price. I mean, there's a lot of things that he's suddenly going back to work. And here's my thing on him. And we'll get off this in like 5 minutes. But here's my thinking on it. I think Carey Price, and when he had, like Corinne said, there have been times when Montreal would have traded him if they could have. There were times when they were really frustrated with him. I think he got frustrated. I heard at one point he was really mad because he hadn't even kicked into his new contract yet, and there were already people like saying that this is ridiculous. We're going to trade him. I can't help but think that if my wife's from Seattle and that's going on, that I'm not saying to her, hey, you know what? A couple years from now, I'll make myself available, and maybe we can end up in Seattle, which would be fun for everybody. Be closer to my family, where your family is. And I can't help but think that plan was in the back of Price's mind for a very long time. And that may have changed over time here, because and he's never going to be the kind of guy who lets that public. Because if you did that in Montreal, it would be death, right? But at the same time, personally, I could see that would be a discussion you would have. There's an expansion team coming. Oh, where's it coming? Oh, by the way, it's in your hometown in Seattle. Oh, really? That's pretty interesting.
Let's get Anthony's thought on this before Corinne has to go, because I want to get Anthony's input on the situation.
I think we have a lot of noise out there, and I can't help but think in my mind that it one way or the other, Francis holds the key. It's a game of chicken, as we're all well aware of, with all the information coming back and forth. I don't think Price is going to end up there, but I do think that there's a chance that Bergevin he's going to have to give up something of consequence in order to make sure that they don't take him. That's my feeling on that. One way or the other, I feel that Francis holds the key to this whole thing, and it may be a little bit of a misplay on Bergevin's part by having him exposed, but I do think in this circumstance that Francis knows the situation. There's enough information out there that I believe Bergevin in this circumstance might have to give something a little bit more than he might want to.
Yeah. I mean, if that's the case,
that's
like
my read.
I mean, the last thing I want to ask him before we go is this. I mean, to me, how is this going to play out if he's gone on Wednesday?
If he's gone.
Yeah, if he's gone, what's the reaction in Montreal?
Well, I think there will be major uproar, and I think that it's going to be a very uncomfortable position for Marc Bergevin, of course, because clearly he thought, I can gamble with that. Nobody's going to want that contract. They're not going to take him. But effectively, what he's done right now is he's put himself at Ron Francis's mercy. It's like Francis has a gun to his head. It's like, what do you give me so that people don't want to kill you in Montreal? That's what's going on. It is, and I wouldn't be surprised to see a deal being made with the draft picks that Ross did mention, but also maybe something else in Montreal's cupboard that could hurt. Like I don't know, Kotkaniemi, something like that. It would just be like a.
I think if they said that, Bergevin would say exactly what Mike didn't say. Go ahead and pick him.
Maybe, but in that case,
I think in this circumstance it has to be something with. He's going to have to give up something of consequence. Of what level? I think you have to be, and this is where you kind of look at the way Vegas's general manager really held a gun to everybody's head throughout that entire process. Yeah. And I'm sure at the same time, a lot of general managers who may or may not still be around still have, I think much of the pattern of what we're seeing here with some teams are doing right now is to prevent a repeat of that. It all depends on the relationships that Francis, there is relationships that have to be established. He does want to win, but at the same time, he's got to look at potential deals down the road.
I mean, I'll give him the 1 and the 3. The 1's a 31 anyhow, so.
Precisely. In that circumstance, that's probably the pick that you would, that it's 30, be a 31 pick. And that is something of consequence at the end of the day. It might be, however you view, but it's still something of value that maybe Bergevin probably wouldn't want to do, but maybe forced to do.
The fact that you have left this to chance is astonishing. Like,
who's he going to start the season,
What was
Who's going
that?
to start if he saves Price?
There's goalies out
Price
there.
starts the season in November. Who is starting the season for the Canadians?
Yeah, James Harder's out
Hey,
there.
Allen won't
No, I
be
mean,
there.
like
Who gets
you got
elected?
Brian Elliott and Jake Allen. The difference between those two is not that drastic. I mean, there's players out there that you could bring in.
There's a big difference between
There's a
those
big
two.
Jake Allen. I think there's a difference between Jake Allen and
I'm
Brian
saying there is a
Elliott.
difference, but I'm saying you're talking about your case scenario where you've lost your starting goalie to Seattle and your other goalies or whatever happened. I mean, however you case this out.
I hear
This injury is probably significant, but it's not career threatening. It's ironic that it's all we're hearing about it right after everybody freaks out that Price has been left exposed. There's so many obvious things here that are just glaring things.
I hear you can get Mikko Koskinen for a song.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but no one wants Mikko Koskinen. But
Absolutely.
the thing, like, I agree that there are goalies out there, but are there goalies who can do the job in Montreal, in the high-pressure Montreal? And Jake Allen, he's been great, but he's great as a second. He's not great as a starting goalie. So you need someone to take center stage in front of him. And there's not that on the market.
I would sign Allmark. I would go out and sign Allmark right away. I would as UFA as your future goalie, and then like bring in somebody as your backup. And listen, the reality is Montreal is ahead of schedule. Montreal, this past Montreal run was aberration. They're ahead of schedule.
Every time Allmark lets in a bad goal, everybody says, "Look, look what you did, Bergevin."
I could write the Pat Hickey column for him if they bring in Allmark.
Look what you did, Bergevin.
It would be easy.
I mean, look what you did, Bergevin, is when he loses Price to Seattle. That's the story. You have to realize and this is the last thing I'll say. There's two different fan bases here, totally different fan bases coming from two totally different places. You have Montreal's as mature of a fan base as you can get. They understand that Price is probably not worth this, and that Price could be this, but they also think that he is worth it because there's an emotional aspect to the Montreal fan base always, and they saw what he just did. And they're like any fan base. The Seattle fan base doesn't care about the $21 million. They're like, we're getting Carey Price, friggin' awesome. That's the reality. So, I listened to today just for fun when I was driving back from the shore. I listened to Seattle Sports Talk Radio for an hour. Just wanted to hear what they were saying on Seattle Sports Talk Radio. If you listen to that, there is no way Francis can just ignore this. You know, like that fan base is like, we're getting Carey Price. Holy cow, that's amazing. We don't have a team yet, and we are. So there is a lot here. So anyway, we got to go and we got to move on to other things. Karen, I really appreciate you jumping on today.
No worries. I'll be back on Thursday if you want to talk about what
that's
happened.
going to be the second part of the story. We've got one way or the other for sure.
All right. Cheers.
Thanks
for
so
having
much.
me, guys. See you later. Bye.
All right, take care. All right.
Okay, Eck, we should touch on the trades, a couple of the trades quickly.
Yes, we should. I want to talk about the Ellis trade. Of course.
Go
I
ahead.
think what's being missed on the Ryan Ellis Nashville / Vegas trade.
Oh, by the way, Kevin Allen
Yeah, I know.
called it a couple weeks ago. He was mentioning Ryan Ellis.
Yeah.
There you go.
The Predators
appreciate
made
it.
a hell of a trade here, and the people don't realize the Predators made a hell of a trade here. They really did. I mean, I as much as I like Ellis, and I think he's a good fit for the Flyers right now. I think it's a good fit for them for sure. But the Predators got Myers and Cody Glass out of this situation, which is for a player that they really feel is on the downside of his career, right, Kev? I mean, that they really have seen less impressed with.
I think they're less thinking he's on the downside as much as they think they can't afford to have all those small defensemen and then paying him for the next several years. Like, by the time he gets to the end of the contract, he probably won't be the player they want him to be. But he hasn't played as well. There's no doubt.
Yeah, he's dropped off, and Myers is a player as a defenseman. I think he's got a hell of a future ahead of him. I really like him a lot. He was my favorite young Flyer defenseman. I think that he still makes mistakes, but he's got an upside that you can see is very real. And Cody Glass, like we've talked about him, and we talked about him last week. You know, like that's no small for somebody that you really couldn't afford to play and needed to kind of get rid of. That's an amazing return.
It's a good return, Eck, but I don't want to say – I would never say Ryan Ellis is slipping or on the downside. And I fully disagree with Nashville's we can't have too many small defensemen. I'm not saying you should have 4 of them, but if that's a reason to get rid of Ellis, I wouldn't be on board with that if I was there.
But what I would say is that, you know, you when you look at the raw potential and the package that Phil Myers does have.
Oh yeah, no question.
The key thing is a lot of things that come for him is that experience. It will come. Some of the things will come with experience. Are there some questions with regards to how quickly he processes situations on the ice, yes, that's a legitimate thing. But every other physical tool that I see Phil Myers, between last year in the postseason, and we saw it when Sanheim and Myers were together against this and play how well they played against this Montreal, most of this Montreal team. They were the shutdown pair in that series.
They were.
And Phil, they had tremendous range and size, and it was difficult. It was difficult for Montreal with, at the time, their smallish lineup to be able to sort of penetrate deep enough into Philadelphia's zone. Yeah. So I would say of the players that the Flyers gave up in this deal, of the two, I think Myers at this point right now to me has very good upside. But there has to be an understanding of how this deal is, and that I think Myers is a second pair defenseman, a good second pair defenseman. The Flyers needed a first pair defenseman, and that I believe Ryan Ellis is that.
But they still need a defenseman, Anthony. They do. On top of this,
you talk about Nashville.
No,
the Flyers.
No, I'm not saying they're not. And again, we're going to get to Wednesday, and we're going to see again who gets plucked off their roster. I think they need another defenseman on that second pairing to go with Sanheim now.
Yeah,
right.
And they can't go with. I like Justin Braun, but Braun is a third pair depth defenseman at this point.
And from the Vegas perspective here, we obviously have noticed over the last couple of years their either lack of trust in Cody Glass to give him a realistic opportunity at the NHL, or they just soured on him. And Nolan Patrick played for Kelly McCrimmon and Brandon, and that's the whole reason why they went out and got him. Now, I don't know if that means he's going to play center for them, or if he's going to be on the first line or whatever. I mean,
they considering they're crying for center depth.
Right,
he's going to play center. I just don't. I would certainly put ahead of Stevenson in this circumstance. He to me right now, Patrick at his absolute best can be a solid middle six at high end second line center, at least based on what I see. There's things he has to, for anybody who's watched Patrick playing in Philadelphia, even prior to the before the COVID break.
Right.
There's a hesitancy in his play.
Yeah, he's thinking too much out there. He
missed a year with migraine headaches. I mean, there's like that definitely plays into it.
We're talking even prior to the migraine
but
headaches.
Even before that,
he was young.
He's thinking too much. Even if you put him, like Mike said, with Stone and Pacioretty, it's not making him a 50-point center.
I agree.
Now, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just going to say, to me, the fun part about this, and it's what I've always noted in the NHL, and I bet Russ has picked this up too. Whenever there's a player who's first-round pick and he doesn't develop as quickly for whatever reason, either injury or whether, there's always another organization that's thinking, if I get into our organization, So, like Nashville acknowledges that Glass hadn't played as well as it had been expected. But I think they think we get him in our organization. And the same thing with McCrimmon is thinking, I know Patrick. I get him here, and it'll be great. And that's
you're right about that, Kev. You're right.
So often.
Yeah. Two quick things, then we'll get to our list here. One, the Leafs trade for Jared McCann, I think gives them cover, because clearly from the reports out there, Seattle is interested either in Alex Kerfoot or Travis Dermott. Apparently, McCann was not going to be protected by Pittsburgh. They protected Jeff Carter, and they must have promised Jeff Carter that he would be protected.
That's the only way that could have happened.
Yeah. Right. They exposed Zucker and Brandon Tanev over Teddy Bluger. So they're very vulnerable, but that basically gives the Leafs cover that they lose Kerfoot, then they have McCann who can replace him. Maybe he's not as good, but he's a pretty decent player. The other one, and Lou Lamoriello, with the deal that he made for Andrew Ladd to get Andrew Ladd off of his books, traded the package that they got for Devin Taves. So they traded Devin Taves to get rid of Andrew Ladd. To me, that is horrible. Absolutely horrible.
I was saying, I mean, Andrew
Ladd had until we see what Lou does with that space now. He bought space. When he acquires that space and you see who he gets, then at that point, I'd be willing to pass more judgment on what Lou has done there. But yeah, on the face of it, it looks horrible at the moment.
My
I'll
bet
tell you
is
this.
that he's got something very big planned with that to make that move.
Okay,
like he's got
that's
something
fair.
up there.
But what he doesn't have planned, Eck, is in a draft that's already not the deepest, he now, he doesn't have a first and he doesn't have an early second. He's got a late second, which a late second in this draft gets very risky. It doesn't matter if you have the rest of the rounds filled. You're guessing on a lot of these picks. And they don't have the flush farm system they used to either. That's starting to get whittled away by all of these cup hopes that haven't even come through yet. They haven't even made it to the cup yet.
Okay,
Yeah.
Let's get through the teams in the Atlantic and the Metro. Try not to go too much into that. Just
I won't go into detail too much.
let's start with the Atlantic. Start with the Boston Bruins. Start with you, Ak.
Oh, going right to me.
Well,
I was hoping not to start with me. Don't start with me, please. Start with somebody else for a second because I'm going to get pulled.
Go to Russ.
Good, you, Russ.
Okay.
All right.
I would go Jeremy Lawson, and I'll tell you why. He is a hard-nosed, role-playing, tough but good skating defenseman. Yeah, he's got a few turnovers. We saw him in the playoffs, but he's young, and he has an attitude out there. And the one thing you want as a new team that I don't think will be great like the Vegas Golden Knights is you got to have some attitude.
Yeah, I like that. Good, Anthony.
I'm going to go. I was very much thinking about Lawson. It's an interesting. Boston was kind of a tough in terms of that, but I would say I certainly wouldn't say. I would think a lot about Sean Corrali possibly.
Okay,
maybe one I would certainly consider in that circumstance, or Richie. But I'm going to say Corrali because I think. For a depth forward, I think he would be, or maybe a little higher. I mean, he could potentially be as much as middle six for that team. So I'm going to say Sean Corrali in this case.
Kevin?
I think I'm going Connor Clifton.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Got a lot of experience.
I'll go with Richie because big wingers.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Lawson, for all the reasons you said, Russ is somebody attractive, but there are a lot of defensemen of that age in this expansion draft. Forwards with Richie's size, that's tough, and that could be something that they shop. Oh, he's an RFA with arbitration eligibility. So I think he's 1 year away from UFA, so you could shop that at the deadline. So Richie for me, Ak.
Obviously, this is hard to do because you have to it's a whole team thing,
Right.
But if I was to pick one guy, and I think that to make this team solid, I think I would go with Clifton as well. As I was between him and Lawson for me, but I like the experience. I really do. I think that Francis will like that too. You got to have a defense you got to have some defensemen like that. I think that's huge.
Okay, Buffalo's next. I'll go Buffalo here, and I will take Will Borgen. Good defenseman, 24 years old, I believe, hasn't gotten a lot of opportunity with the Sabres. There's not a lot to choose here. It would either be him or Oposo, and I don't think they want to spend $6 million on Oposo, so I'll go Borgen. Russ?
Yeah, Borgen's on my list. I mean, if he was good enough for the Olympic team, I certainly could give him a look on on an expansion team. He's strong, and he's a good enough skater, but he plays a good physical defensive game, and so that's why.
Anthony?
As much as I was close on Borgen, but they are going to need some forwards in this circumstance. So I think potentially Cody Aiken. Once again, ending up on an expansion team after being with Vegas. I think there's
He's only got 1 year left. He's only got 1 year left, so yeah.
All right. Yeah, Cody Aiken.
Kevin?
Borgen. Yeah, that was an easy one, I thought.
Mm-hmm.
As much as I'm tempted with Oposo definitely because I'd like to see him get another start someplace else. I like him. I really think he's got more than he's been able to show there. He might be he's the kind of guy. He's kind of like the what was his name from Seattle who went there and just went nuts. I'm going to go with Oposo actually because I think that he could actually become the kind of guy on an expansion team when he's playing serious roles that could put minutes together, could put goals together.
Okay. Detroit, we'll go to Kevin first on this one.
Yeah, this is a tough one. They're all bad choices. I'm going with Stetcher. I thought about Cholowski because I think they would think that they could get him to be the player that he is. But Stetcher's a pretty useful player, and he doesn't make a lot of money, and so I'm going to go with him.
Okay, I'll go with Nemestikov for the same reason I went with Richie, because he can play wing and he can play center, and he's only got a year left in his contract, so you could ship him at the deadline and get something for him. Russ?
I'm going to go Taro Hirose. He's a guy who's got a little bit of speed and a great shot. And if he really ever gets enough ice time in this league, he probably could score 10, 15 goals.
Anthony?
I'm going to go Troy. I'm going to go with Kevin. Troy Stetcher is my pick.
It's amazing how few of these players are actually signed, right? It's just like astonishing on this team. That's what makes it so hard to pick these guys. Gosh. There's a couple UFAs I would cheek a shot at here, but since you got to take somebody off the team, I guess I'm going to go with Kevin on that one too. Yeah.
Okay. Florida. Let me just put this out as a caveat. The conventional wisdom out there is that Seattle is going to take Dreger. I don't get it. Why not just wait until July 28th and sign him and pick somebody else off their roster?
Because other teams obviously want him. That's probably what they know.
That's it.
All right. So let's start with Florida. Let's start with Anthony.
Dreger.
Okay. Kevin?
I think it is Dreger. They don't want to get him out on the free market because he's a pretty hot property. He's younger. He doesn't cost a lot of money. By younger, I mean he's not 30. So I think that's their guy.
Dreger for me. Kak.
It depends what they do with Price. It depends where they go with Price. Honestly, if they go with Price, then Dreger is.
I think they take him no matter what.
You take him no matter what. Yeah,
I do.
I think that's what Florida expects them to do too. So yeah, I'd say yes. I would say Dreger too. Yeah.
Russ?
I'm going to go with a surprise pick. It wouldn't surprise me if Florida makes a side deal to not pick Dreger because Quenneville likes him. And because really, honestly, you don't want to put a young goalie as their starter this year. I think it's too soon for him, for Spencer Knight. So if you had Dreger there, it would be a good mix. Bob would just have to sort of, hang out there, but whatever.
See, that's the exact reason why it's exactly they got the money too far invested, I think, with Bob.
Well, they might just Quenneville doesn't care about the money though. If he has goalies that he like, and look, you could put Knight to start in a year in the AHL anyhow, and it's fine. And you can bring him up half season if you want. But I'm gonna go Ratko Gudas because I think there's few defensemen like him in the league where you actually worry when Gudas is on the ice. You worry as a fan, you worry as the home coach because he might make a dumb play, but you also worry as the opposing team because he might beat the heck out of you with a great check.
Okay.
Yeah. That's really interesting.
Montreal is next, and I'll go first and say Paul Byron and Carey Price. No. I can just imagine who you're going to take.
I don't know that I'm going to take Price actually. But if I was who I think they're going to take, I have no idea. I honestly don't have any idea. I just think that, like I said, the Price thing, I'm more pissed off that that's even an option. But I'm going to say, I would say if it was me, I would take Price. Yes, definitely.
Russ?
I went with a different option here. I went with a guy that could immediately flip based on his salary and experience, and that's Brett Kulak. A lot of teams in the league would want him, and he might not even hit the opening day roster, but I know I could turn him around quickly. And that's something where I bet you I get 4 or 5 teams that instantly want him.
Yeah, a defenseman at $1.85 million. Anthony.
If it isn't Price, I think I'm gonna agree with you, Mike. I think it's gonna be Paul Byron.
Okay, and Kevin?
If it's not Price, I agree. I'm torn between Kulak and Byron.
I was torn too.
It's probably Byron.
Is it possible, guys, here that this is like, who are like the Marcia Stows? Is it possible Jonathan Drouin is that player?
Well, we don't know when he comes out the other side here what he'll be like.
We don't want to talk.
Marcia Stowe at least came in and he was physically right, and he was coming off a really good season with Florida. You're not Vegas knows what they were getting in Marcia Stowe.
I would take a chance on Drouin if he was cheaper.
Yes.
Yeah. I agree.
Ottawa, Russ.
Ottawa.
Where am I list here?
Let's see.
I know you're
Vitaly Abramov, because this kid has speed, he's got skill, and he's just never gotten a chance. He's 23, and he can play for them right away if they want him to. And I think he can put up points in the NHL. Now he's I think he's a RFA after that or a UFA after that. He's only got 1 year.
right.
But I think if he does what they want him to do, he might even re-sign there. So he could be one of their young stars of the future.
Anthony?
Yeah, I'm going to say the same. As soon as I saw Abramov on the list, to me that was I thought a little bit about Chris Tierney,
Me too.
maybe even, and Joey and Decor as well.
Me
Other
too.
than Dadonov, but to me, I think it's just a perfect sort of situation there. Especially they can bring Abramov along. I think he's their pick. I think he'd be their pick.
Kevin?
Yeah, Abramov is the hot pick in all the mock drafts just because his skill package. Tierney, I did like, but he's not. He didn't have a good year. I'm going to go with Abramov as well.
And I think Kevin also, if they have Byron, I think that cover. If they end up picking Byron, that kind of I think it might balance
That's a
that
good
out.
point. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Well, here's where I would go off the board in terms of the goalie. I would take Matt Murray and flip him. I think there are teams out there that would be interested in Matt Murray at $4 million instead of 6.25, and they could retain and flip him. And there's no move clause like with Price. So that's where I don't think they're going to do that. I'd probably you're right, either Abramov or Decor.
You know Pittsburgh's going to hang up the phone when you call, Mike.
Well, I'm not talking about Pittsburgh.
Okay.
I'm talking about somebody who likes Sioux Greyhounds.
I'm going to go very different than you guys on this one. I think a guy who could use a new start in different place would be Dadonov. I actually think that, he's expensive, $5 million. But I was surprised. Were anybody else surprised that they protected Victor Mete? Was that really kind of like?
Obviously, they really wanted him, so I guess I wasn't shocked.
Or at the same time, they look at him as an asset that is tradable, and they didn't want to lose him for nothing.
He's young.
He's young, but he's definitely shown not a lot. Like he really.
No, but Dave Nuff is one of these guys that, you can get a great year out of him, and you might get nothing.
But you got to look at these. You got to look at what the kind of role he's going to be given. You won some skilled players on this team like that, and he's definitely that. He's definitely a skilled player. He can bring it in. He could be the guy who scores like 20 goals for them. That kind of thing. We saw this with Nashville, right? So that's, I don't know. He's one I would look at for that.
All right, Tampa Bay, and we have to specify here that we can't know if there is a trade. Like if they trade if Tyler Johnson's selected, that might be, they're giving them 2 or 3 prospects or draft picks. So we'll just take what's on the list in terms of who they would take. And Russ, they have so many good young prospects on their available list. It's a question of which one you want to take. And if it's me, I'll go Cal Foote because I think he's NHL ready. Russ?
So why were you saying Johnson's not on the list?
No, he's on the list. Do you think he might be? They might.
I'm gonna still say Tyler Johnson because I think at the end of the day, I don't think there's anything Tampa will be able to do to keep him.
But they might trade him.
They might, but he is the one true local guy.
Right.
And I don't want to hear about Carey Price being local. He's Spokane, and he grew up there. And they can market the hell out of this guy. And I know Eck argued with me because I said they would sell a lot of Tyler Johnson jerseys, and he's like, over Carey Price. But you know what? Over time, Eck, there's guys that grow with a franchise, and
I'm not saying they would. Tyler Johnson they'll sell Tyler Johnson jerseys, no question about it.
Yeah. So I think he would sell a lot of jerseys too.
I'm going to go way off the board on this one. Okay, this is what I think they're going to do. And this depends on what happens with Barclay Goodrow. Okay, but if he signs in New York or not. If he doesn't sign in New York,
it looks like they have a number of maybe 3.6 for 6 out there, something like that.
But if he doesn't sign for New York, and if he sees that they've gone out there and gotten themselves Gord and Coleman, like if they sign Coleman as a UFA and pick Gord off this list, they have a possibility of putting that line together in Seattle.
Yeah, but the line is Goodrow, Coleman, and Gord, right?
Right. That's what I'm saying. So they can Gord is unprotected. You can grab Gord. Coleman is a UFA and Goodrow is a UFA, right? So you could actually go out there and put together.
And they're all in their late 20s. So
yeah, but if you're an expansion team, having some cohesion like that on a line that believe in each other, I think that's a great thing to build off of. I think that would be.
Gaudreau's going to test the market. He's not going to just instantly sign a deal.
Oh, he's not going to instantly sign a deal, but to me, it becomes more attractive to him to go there if they picked up Gord and they sign Coleman. Then Gaudreau's like, oh, maybe
Okay, they may pick up Gord, right? I'll give you that.
But I will also turn around and say that
hang out there for a while too.
The problem is that you're going to be paying premiums for Tampa's fourth line.
Money.
That's a lot of money for what they were used for. They had great chemistry, but remember what was in front of them.
For sure,
they become a third line. And now you're paying a premium.
They're legitimately a third line in any other team except for Tampa.
You're going to be paying a potential premium here for your bottom six. That's the issue.
Yeah, you are. But you are also giving yourself
the special lights on them and the tail fin, and we all look at it and are like, it's a Honda Accord. You don't do that to an Accord. This is a third, fourth line. You're spending way too much on it, like everything.
I don't know who hasn't picked yet, but
I haven't.
Go ahead.
Me.
I haven't.
And Kevin hasn't yet. I was between Gord and Andre Palat. I'm going to go with Palat in this case. I think having a scoring winger is going to be important for them.
I'm going to go with Gord. There's not a lot of centers available,
right?
And he can score. And maybe with an opportunity on the second line, they move him up. I don't like the contract all that well, but there's such a shortage of centers. And I do think the Tyler Johnson deal, if it's going to happen, is going to be a side deal.
Yeah.
All right. And last in the Atlantic is the Toronto Maple Leafs. I'll go first. I think the connection with Dave Hackstall and Travis Dermott and the fact that Dermott signed for 2 years at a low amount will be the reason that they take Dermott. It could be Kerfoot, but I think it'll be Dermott. Russ?
I'm going to go Kerfoot because he penalty kills, and you need guys on the penalty kill, and he's a good wily vet. So I'm going to go Kerfoot.
Anthony?
If they don't take Gord, if they don't take Gord from Tampa, then I would lean I would certainly lean Kerfoot in this circumstance from Toronto. They need the center depth.
Kevin?
Oh, I'm definitely going Kerfoot for the reason I said before. There's a shortage of centers, and he's a good one.
He's a really good one. Has there been any thought at all? So I'm getting an echo. Sorry. Is there any thought at all here that they might lose Jared McCann?
No, and I just wrote about this in my blog today. If the Leafs lose Jared McCann, then basically they lost Philip Hallander and a 7th round pick in the expansion draft, which
they might. I mean, listen, it comes down to it. It depends on how they want to play and how those players fit. That being said, if it's me picking, I'm probably going to go Kerfoot.
Right.
Yeah, but I'm going to give Pittsburgh credit here because I believe Hallander's a player, and they made sure they got him back, and they probably saw a roadblock in Toronto, and that was smart by Pittsburgh. And this is part of Pittsburgh where we talk about good drafting, good asset management. Maybe, look, at the end, Rutherford had some bad asset management, but it was good for a while, and they're generally pretty good.
And I like I said before, if the Leafs. If McCann is chosen, they keep Kerfoot. If Kerfoot is chosen, then McCann fills in for Kerfoot because he can play both left wing and center. And if Dermott is picked, they have a lot of depth on defense. So it was a good move for the Leafs. Metro Division, Carolina Hurricanes. I think
this is the biggest slam dunk.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. You could consider a slam dunk. I think Russ and I are on the same page. So Russ, you say the guy.
Jake Bean.
Yeah, I'm on the same page too. I think that's
100% Jake Bean.
I'm stunned they left Jake Bean available. I'm stunned.
They couldn't trade him.
Yeah, I'm sure they tried.
They couldn't trade.
No, they didn't. They wanted too much.
Well, whatever. They couldn't get him.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a difference.
Well, but why wouldn't they take something for him?
I don't know. It's a good question.
No, they definitely tried. They tried.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, and I like the 3 defensemen that obviously the 3 they protected are all good, but Bean or Pesce would have come. I don't know what Bean or Brady Shea. I don't know. Brady Shea might.
This is Brendan Moore really. As Russell said, that's Brendan Moore likes Shea.
Yeah. But I think it's going to be Jake Bean. It's got to be.
Well, Ron Francis drafted him, so
right.
Exactly. Unless they go out and get and sign Hamilton.
Right.
To me, Jake Bean is the pick.
Yeah.
Okay. Columbus Blue Jackets. Anthony.
Max Domi again, and they'll play, and I think they'll play him. They'll play him at center.
Yeah.
Injured shoulder out to December.
I still think Domi's the pick.
Okay, Kevin.
Yeah, me too. I just think it's a kind of a name player, and everybody always thinks they can rehabilitate someone. So,
well,
yeah,
it's not going to be Zach Dalpe, but I'll go Max Domi. Okay, Ak.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the guy. I think he's definitely the guy. They're gonna. That's you're right. I mean, you have to question if you're Francis, you have to question why he wasn't protected because, I mean, they gave up so much for him, and
well, 3 teams too. 3 teams have now had Max Domi.
Right, that's got to be a question, right? So
yeah, I mean, A, he's injured, and B, he didn't fit with Tortorella, and based on
Tortorella's gone,
and that was so surprising.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. That's the first thing I remember, Kevin. When that trade happened, the first thing you said to me on the phone was Domi and Tortorella.
Yeah.
I would be again. I do want to see sort of how if they do pick Domi, Hackstall's a different coach than the previous ones he's had. Yeah. Maybe he's able to strike some sort of an understanding between to maybe get a little more out of Max than the other coaches have.
Russ, did you have?
I'm going Gabriel Carlson because he's a young emerging defensive defenseman and he's got size and Domi. There's definitely something there why he's not catching on with other teams. I struggled with Domi even with the draft. Like I originally had him ranked near like the about 31. People were like, "What are you doing? He's way in there." And I said, "Listen, I got to look more at him." And I did end up raising him maybe to like 20 or something. And he hasn't hit like a lot of people thought he would hit. And there's something there, and I don't know what it is.
Mm-hmm. Next one is the New Jersey Devils. Let me go first on this one. I was thinking it was going to be one of the young forwards like a Nathan Bastian, but I'll go with Andreas Janssen. He's 26. He's fast. He's only making $3.4 million, and he could turn around after a bad year in New Jersey and score 20 goals with first line ice time. So I'm going to
agree with you, Mike, on that one 100%. I think that's the guy, and he's the perfect fit for if you want to go with the Vegas type model. He's the kind of guy they would have drafted, and he's the kind of guy who would have had success there.
Russ?
I originally would have gone with Butcher, but the thing is I drafted him a fair amount of defensemen, so Janssen is a good pick, and so I'll go along with Janssen too.
Anthony?
Chalk. Janssen. Too good of a play. Again, he's top for on a Seattle lineup. He's gonna be a top 6 winger.
Yeah.
Kevin?
Well, that may be. I'm going to go with Butcher just on a hunch.
Okay.
So.
Okay. New York Islanders. Plenty of items to choose here. Russ, go at it.
I'm going Kiefer Bellows every day, all day. They've not given him a chance. He definitely could score some goals, but he is really a younger version of Cal Clutterbuck, a 32-year-old guy that they're protecting who maybe has 2 years left. To me, it's just inconceivable that they would do this. But obviously, Barry Trotz has no time for Kiefer Bellows. That's what it tells me.
Anthony?
I was on the fence on this one. I was thinking a lot about Sebastian Aho, if you're going to be going defensively, but I think there's going to be taking quite a few in this draft. So I'm going to agree with Russ. It was between Aho and Bellows. I'm going to go Bellows.
Oh man, to me this is an obvious one. Josh Bailey all the way. Like to me that
too much that money. No,
I wouldn't. I mean, you're getting the character. You need character on your team. Like Josh
do.
Bailey.
But I think, how many years are left?
3 years at $5 million. I can get my character a lot.
No, that's not bad for a guy who's going to be. If you bring him on the team, he's like your captain or assistant captain. Like to me, that's something.
He's your captain, but. How many points is he scoring for me? I still need to score some points.
He's a warrior, though. You could put him in. I don't know. I really like Josh Bailey. I think that
he's a good player, but he's a good player on like a great team like the Islanders. You take him away from that, and he's back to Josh Bailey from 4 or 5 years ago, where he was an okay player.
Kevin, did you pick?
Yeah, I haven't picked. I'm going to go off the board too, and I'm going to take Eberle. I think the one thing they've got to try to make sure they get his goals.
Yeah,
and I think he's 20. And I don't think he's got a lot of years left, 1 or 2.
Eberle has got
3, I think.
3 at 5.5. It's more than Bailey.
Yeah, I'd still take that, but Russ is probably right. It's probably Bellows because he's an attractive a young player. But I'm going to go with Eberle anyway. That's what I do.
Yeah, I was thinking about Josh Hosang, but I'll go with Bellows. Okay, New York Rangers.
You could get Josh Hosang in a year when his rights run out. You know what I mean?
I know. Thank you. It was a joke.
I'll get him now.
Russ,
But he still has rights. You're going to have to give Lou something.
Yeah.
New York Rangers, Russ.
New York Rangers, it's an interesting one because I really thought that they would give this guy a chance based on what he did, but it's going to be Colin Blackwell. And if they're just saying, if Chris Drury is just saying Colin Blackwell is a Quinn guy and that's the only reason he succeeded last year, then he's making a mistake. And, he scored 12 goals for them on an expansion team. He probably gets 15, 17. He is the Marchessault because he kicked around forever and proved himself last year. He finally got a chance. He proved himself, and they still kicked him to the curb.
I know. I know. I'm with you 100% on that, Russ, by the way. Casualty of everything that's gone down in New York,
Yep.
But they're going to regret it.
I think Russ has been right on most of these, to be honest. His scouting is helping him out here. He's definitely right on this one with Blackwell because that's a guy that I don't even think there's another good choice other than him.
No.
Okay, Anthony, did you say?
I was between Gauthier and Hamill and Blackwell. Again, another depth guy at this point. And again, there is history there, obviously, with Gauthier
For sure.
with Gauthier, and that's the reason why it was a little bit difficult. But Blackwell's like a missile, and you need and if they want to play out, it depends. Hack. I know we talk about how his teams played in Philadelphia. The first season, he'd like to sometimes have guys coming in like a missile on a forecheck, and Blackwell's that kind of player. So I'll go with Blackwell there.
Well, I'm sure of one thing. It will not be Tony DeAngelo.
No.
I'll
on a new team.
Yeah.
He'll be in Switzerland before we know it, I'm sure.
I'll go with Gauthier for the reasons said previously. Okay. Philadelphia. You go first.
JVR. I think they take JVR. I don't think. I mean, the temptation's there for sure. With there's no way they're taking Voracek. But there's temptations there for Gostisbehere. I think that talking to people out there, they do like Gostisbehere. They could end up trading for Gostisbehere, but I think that they'll. I think JVR, for the reasons that Kevin said before, of you need goals. And the flat out, he is a goal scorer. He's going to make your. He's one guy who's going to be on your first power play unit. It's like it gives you something that you can like grab onto there. And he had a good year last year, and he really did.
Anthony.
I'm going to go Shane. I think it's going to be Shane Gostisbehere. I think the balance, also the call certainty of his contract, certainly I think helps out there. I thought he improved. That's the other thing. We talk about JVR's improvement last year. I thought, despite the tire fire year that it was, second part of the year that was for Philadelphia, I thought at times that Ghost showed some more maturity to his game. But but I think he's also a name. He helps as well that he's a name commodity as well.
Yeah.
Put him on the first power play unit. I just see him. I can see him in a Seattle Kraken uniform, playing. If you pair him with a pretty good defensive partner with him. Let's say and we won't. I don't obviously don't want to reveal.
Yeah.
Like a Giordano, even though he's 38, having a guy like that with him could make for a pretty decent pairing.
He's kind of like the Shea Theodore out there type thing to me. Like
but I think the $7 million on JVR might be something where they're thinking about it. So do we want to take one or more players at that number? They may decide to go other organizations to that number, and then they look at it and say, well, JVR may have had a good year for Philadelphia, but there's also some down times here too. If he comes here, we're going to get that level of play. So I'm going to say Gostisbehere.
Russ.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I'm going to say I have a player from another team that we're going to talk about eventually that I think Seattle would spend, good money on, better than JVR money, but much better return. So on this one, I'm going to go Robert Hagg because even though this is the last year of his deal, I can play him on a second power play. I could build up his point total because he has that in his game, but he's not been able to do that in Philly. And then I could trade him at the deadline and get a decent amount because he has a very affordable contract. And this guy can play hockey. And, he does have a physical nature to him now too. I think if Philly loses Robert Hagg, it would really hurt. Actually,
Yeah. Russ has said Hagg for the last couple of weeks, and he's swayed me. So I don't think they're taking JVR off their hands. They're gonna make Philadelphia pay them to take JVR.
I think so.
Pittsburgh.
This is where I want to jump in as the first thing. 'Cause, we talked about this.
Well, okay. I know who I would take, and
Yeah.
that's Brandon Tanev, because Tanev is a really hustling player who's still at a pretty decent age. $3.5 million is not a bad cap. At the term is 4 years, but you have to have money. You have to allocate 60% of the cap. So Tanev, that would hurt Pittsburgh if they lose Tanev.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that's why I was going to say there's no, you guys know I wrote that they obviously I texted you guys that they must have promised Jeff Carter that they would protect him.
Yeah, they probably did. Which makes sense. They had to get him to waive his note, but we all thought Carter wouldn't waive to go anywhere, right? So we were kind of all surprised when he waived. Mm-hmm. So that had to be something that he thought about at that point, or his agent thought about probably more than he did. But I think that there's no question. Tanev at times, he's one of the most consistent Penguin forwards that they have, and he is really, he's got such upside. He's a spark plug and a half. He's way more skilled than people realize. He scores very skilled goals for a guy who's like considered more of like a of a shit disturber out there. That's what he does mainly. But Tanev's fast. He's talented. I am shocked. This really does the kind of player the Penguins don't have enough of, and they just let him go. Like
and can you imagine Tanev and Gord on the same line?
And I can't believe that they couldn't trade Tanev. If that's that's the other thing that shocked me about this.
I think
they must think that they're taking Zucker.
I think they're relying on the fact that they think the term will scare Seattle away.
Maybe.
It's not like
or maybe they made a deal not to take Tanev too. It's possible, but I don't know.
What's that, Russ?
It's not like Tanev scores a ton. He's got the tools, but he doesn't score a lot.
Okay.
No, but he doesn't play a lot either. Think about the role he has on that team. He's not. He's
third line.
Yeah, he's always on the third line. If you give him time. Because for a third liner, he scored some very skilled goals.
Okay, who didn't pick yet?
I didn't. And Russ, you first. Go.
I'm going to say Zucker because his last year goes down to 5.2, so they're only paying in the sixes for this year. You get him, you give him the ice time, he scores 25 goals.
Yeah,
you'll eventually be able to trade Jason Zucker based off and he's great in the community. So for a first-year expansion team, this guy's got a sparkling record for that too.
And
for me, it was three guys I was looking at. I was looking at Tanev. I was looking at Pettersson. Depending on where else that they might go, but again, I think the opportunity to have Jason Zucker potentially on their top line here. He's a player that you can kind of present to the community as a player that could be a part of it. So it's probably in ranked order of Zucker, Tanev, Pettersson. I think it's Zucker.
Okay, and finally Washington. I would.
No questions asked.
Yeah, there you go. I would have been tempted. I would have been tempted to take Brendan Dillon, but I think it's no doubt it's going to be Vanacek because it's going to be one of the two goalies. That they protected one of the two. Obviously, they protected Samsonov. If Samsonov had been unprotected, it would have been Samsonov, and now Vanacek is unprotected, so it's going to be Vanacek.
I'll agree. I'm gonna agree with you on that, Mike. I think it's gonna be Vitek Vanacek. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going Vanacek too. I think he's better than Drager.
Yep.
And that could very well. Listen, at the end of the day, that could. It depends. There's a lot of Kakkonen in this case.
Kakkonen's there. How could you? You're going to take him just to see what you can get. Three guys, anyhow. I know.
Yeah, I think they said the max is 4 goalies.
Yeah, so Kakkonen's going to go.
So right. So that's why the Dreger thing makes no sense. You could wait and take him.
But again, if they really it comes down to if they like him enough.
Right. I think
they can negotiate with him now, Anthony. I mean, they can talk to him right now. They have the ability to talk to him now, so there's really no point. They can find out whether or not he wants to go there or not. They can figure out everything they want.
I don't think he could turn down anybody, so I think he would go there.
I think he would too.
I think they're going to take 2 and trade 2 in terms of the goalies. They're going to take 2 that they want to keep, and
I think they'll trade 1. You got to have 3, Mike.
That's what I'm saying. I think Vanacek potentially could be if they like let's say like Dreger and Kokkonen in this case, right?
Right.
Vanacek's going to be either. I think Vanacek will get you something. He's he's a good piece. He's well developed. There's teams out there. I don't know, the Oilers. Might consider it. The Leafs. That'd be good. I mean, I would Vanacek in Toronto would be fascinating.
I think they're looking as a partner for Campbell. I think they're looking for a more experienced guy. That's why I've been zeroing in on Holtby as somebody that they would take.
Yeah, but they can't get Holtby, Mike. Vanacek is a heck of a goalie.
Yeah, but I think
they definitely need one experienced guy though.
And if you're going to tie yourself in again with having a veteran, you need talent in net.
Yeah, you're looking for the next Mike Palmatier, Mike. It's not happening.
Please.
With a young team behind the young team in front of you, you do need somebody who's stable back there.
Somebody has a groin like spaghetti who tears it every time he takes a split save. I mean,
well, we all have groins like spaghetti, Mike. But let's
That's true.
So Vanacek, yeah, I'm kind of with you on the Vanacek thing again. That it does depend on what they're doing with Price. That's going to, as far as goalies go. I think the Minnesota
in a non-carry we decide in a non-carry price division.
In a non-carry price world, I would have said Vanacek. With carry price available, I'm holding off on that one. But I think still that he's probably one of the three that they could take. Still even with Price. So
he has value. So I mean, he's never been on the open market either. So
true, and he did very well for them. You're right. I mean,
he did really well.
He did really well. So there's our two divisions for today. We will be back again tomorrow with the other division. We won't be talking about carry price tomorrow. I appreciate the calm and frank discussions we had today about carry price.
Oh, yeah.
And I expect that we'll be talking about it more as it goes along. I know we want to agree on this.
I'm not going to talk about it again.
I know we want to agree on this one at all. We'll talk about it on Wednesday.
What is the point? Can I ask you something? What is the point of talking about it more? We laid out every possible scenario for carry price.
No, we don't talk about it.
There are more whispers. We have to talk about it.
There's two stories in it. There's two price
There's
stories.
no more stories. At 8:10, we'll know.
And at that point, there's nothing else to talk about until then. But at that point, we will either be talking about Bergevin making a huge mistake or whether or not Francis made a huge mistake. So to me, those are the things that we're going to see.
I don't think anybody's going to say Francis made a huge mistake if he doesn't take carry price.
Right.
I think Seattle fans will. you got. I mean, I think that there's we'll see. We'll see. I'm kind of, we'll see. Obviously, I'm in a different world than you guys on this one, but
so a little bit of news on Barclay Goodrow. Yeah, Mike, you already had the number already, or did you say the discussion was 6 years around 3.6? 3.6. Okay, so you did.
Yeah, I gave that.
Okay, you got that one. Good.
That's not a bad salary if they could.
No, I said something very similar on the radio last night, and you know what? That's fine. You pay it.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I think that's if I'm Goodrow, I take that. Definitely. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's 6 years of security.
You were saying unsigned player, but I mean, the Sharks got a first rounder for him.
I know.
His story's amazing if you think about it.
No, it really is. His rise has been like just
it's unbelievable.
But again, you make the deal because you got help that helped you get 2 Stanley Cups. So
when you think about who's been more of a story, Barclay Goodrow or Johnny Gaudreau, it's incredible over that same period of time. It's pretty astonishing. Like you would have thought that Johnny Gaudreau.
I know, but it's not Johnny.
We'll be getting to Johnny Gaudreau at some point in the next month or so, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's been the bigger story though. Like in the last 2 years, Barclay Goodrow, which is obviously not related, but I'm saying he's been a bigger story than Johnny Gaudreau.
Sure.
And Johnny Gaudreau,
it helps when you're on, getting into deep playoff runs, because if he was still in San Jose, nobody would be really talking about Barclay Goodrow.
No, probably not. But they got a first round, got traded for a first round draft pick, then went and won a Stanley Cup. I mean, just like 2 Stanley Cups. Sorry. So yeah.
Yeah, but if I was the guy who cleaned up all the snot off the ice in Tampa, I would have a ring too. That's not Goodrow's fault.
I don't think those guys get a ring, Russ. Remember, without
that's up to Jeff Bennett.
I guess anyone can get a ring if they pay for it.
That's
Remember,
true.
without the buzz, it's just hockey. We will be back tomorrow to go through the other 2 divisions, and then Wednesday we're going to do something else too. I'm not sure how we're going to do Wednesday night. We're talking about that still. Remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey. We will talk to you.